Let me call up here Mark Meynell, one of the main speakers this morning. At page 9 of our handbook, there's your biography. I read it before looking at your photo. I thought you were 97. Because you've done a lot of things in your short life. Tell us more about it.
I found the secret to eternal youth.
You've been in Uganda, Sheffield, London, training for 22 years. Tell us.
It's true. I don't know what to say. But I guess I'm absolutely passionate about working cross-culturally and engaging with different cultures. I think is one of the things I love about this kind of environment, where we're all united despite so many differences of language and culture and heritage and stuff. But I love that. It's so thrilling, and it's a wonderful thing.
You've been very fast doing all those things together.
Yes, I do them all at once.
I read also that you train preachers in nearly 50 countries. Now we have experienced preachers, also young preachers. What are some of the things you will always teach to a preacher? Some gold that you want to give us as we start preaching?
Well, you do obviously have to pay extra for the gold, but I think it's interesting that one of the things that people say pretty much in every single context I go to, and I think Slavko and I worked together for many years, he would agree. Basically, one of the things you're doing when you're training preachers about handling the scriptures and communicating with people is, in a way, showing that it's always more complicated than you think. And basically, you're sort of piling on the stress at one level, so that the more you learn, the more you think, wow, I've got to do this as well and that. And basically, nearly every country I go to, at some point, somebody will come up to me and say, well, this won't work, because in my culture, people just don't really have the time. And basically, that seems to be a sort of transcultural reality. Nobody has the time. And yet people will make time for the things that they really believe in. So if they want to play soccer, football, they will make time to go to football practice or to do training or whatever. You will make time for what matters. And preaching, we're always growing and learning. There's always more to do. And yes, there's more things to have to think about. But actually, the more we do it, the more we will get out of it ourselves. And actually making time for it is really worth it. So that's one thing. I think the other thing is, and this is crucial, is allowing our message to be determined by the Bible, but also shaped by the Bible, so that we are taking seriously how the Bible communicates the gospel and God's truth through all the different types of literature, and letting that, the tone, the form, the humor even, shape what we say.
Thank you very much. You mentioned working with Slavko. I know you were actually his boss.
I was actually, yeah.
How was that experience?
I've been in therapy for some time now, and so is he.
Also,
and I now look younger since stopping. But anyway.
Also, I heard that you're going to be in Italy next month.
I am, and you're going to avoid it.
Yes, I'm not going to be there. He's the main speaker at a conference in Italy next month.
And you're going somewhere else. Well, you know.
No, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be home. Now, why is it important?
You have to wash your hair or something. Yeah.
Why is it? You're going to speak to us about connecting culture and scripture. Why is it important as we preach the gospel, and then I'll let you speak, to connect with the culture around us?
Culture is a very big word. It covers lots of different things. And the world we're living in, well, I think we all feel, don't we, that it's changing rapidly and seems to be accelerating, getting faster and faster. But what we're trying to do is to build bridges and communicate in a way that people understand. We might, for instance, use words that in church make total sense to people in church. But people outside don't know what we're talking about. We could be speaking a foreign language. So actually, understanding what shapes people out there is as important for us in our work as understanding how we are shaped by the Bible. So in a way, we're trying to do both at once. We're trying to understand and do exegesis of the Bible, but also the culture.
So we look forward to listening to you, don't we? Yes. So, Let me pray for you.
Thank you.
Lord, please speak to us, train us, help us to improve what we do for you, because we want to glorify your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. It's a real joy. This is my first foyer, and I hope it's not my last. But I guess that kind of depends on this moment, doesn't it, really? Especially because I am going to be a disappointment. I'm anticipating this. You see, the thing is, I'm not here to give you a bunch of cool illustrations that you can steal and use in your own talks to convince them, your audiences, that you are as cool and trendy as me. That's not a joke. But no, what I want to do, is, instead of just giving you some tips, I want to actually give a bigger picture to try and get a sense of where human creativity, in all its sort of diverse forms, fits into God's grand scheme of things. Now, I think this is a law of nature. I've discovered this. I think Newton would have discovered it if he'd been on the ball. But basically, people talking about Christianity and the arts have to talk about Tolkien. So J.R.R. Tolkien, the creator of Middle-earth and Lord of the Rings, and so I am going to talk about Tolkien. I'm not as obsessive as some people, maybe even some people in this room. I know people go completely over the top in nerdiness. I'm certainly not like that, of course. But Tolkien was onto something, and he profoundly shaped the way actually many Bible believers today understand creativity and the arts. And he was shaped by a Christian worldview, there's no question. And so everything, and by that we really do mean everything that exists because of our Creator and our Sustainer. He is the Trinitarian God. Or as the book of Colossians, Paul to the Colossian Christians writes, everything is made by Jesus, through Jesus, and for Jesus. Everything. And we are made in the imago Dei, the image of God. We reflect the one who created us in all kinds of ways, in all our diversities and differences and, all kinds of things. You don't need me to go through. Now, that does not mean that we are divine. We are human. We are not gods. But we are his reflections. And Tolkien understood that one of the most significant aspects of being in God's image is that we are creative. It's not the only thing. Much ink has been spilt about what it means to be in God's image, but one of the things that flows out of this is that we are creative. But this is important. We cannot create in the way that God creates. We are not gods. We are not God. He alone creates, and here's another Latin phrase for you, ex nihilo, which means out of nothing. That's very clear. Genesis 1 makes it clear. Basically, before there wasn't, then there was. Out of nothing, he created things. The cosmos. The totality. And in a sense, what we do is, yes, it's a reflection of that in our creativity, but what we are doing is a kind of a mashup, a manipulation of things that have already been made. So, for example, an artist paints. He or she uses materials, minerals, perhaps mixed into pigments, different colors, on canvas that has been weaved or paper that has been pressed. And there's innovation, there's creativity, there's originality. But it's not creation in the Genesis 1 sense. Or a musician manipulates sound wavelengths to create music. He or she can play with rhythm, with harmony, with melody, with speed, all of these things. And there can be all kinds of unexpected combinations. But we were not the ones to create the wavelengths in the first place. We just can manipulate them. And some are better than others at doing that. Some are better than singing than others. But you get the idea. We create, but only as a sort of pale reflection of the Creator. And this is why Tolkien describes human beings as sub-creators. There is a dignity to it. There's something unique about it because we are in God's image, but we do not create ex nihilo. We manipulate what is already there. And yet, you see, we do make. It is one of the extraordinary things. And we do make things that have no purpose. A painting has no use. A song, I suppose you could use it to sell something, or just to have, well, it's a very contemporary phenomenon, isn't it? Just to have background sound, sort of wallpaper music. But that's usually not the reason composers write. They write because they have to. They've got to express something, but not because it has a use. In fact, the extraordinary thing about the arts is most of them have no use. They are useless. But that does not mean they have no value. I think this is one of the ways in which we see our sort of modernist world that judges everything by currency and economic worth, struggles. And so, yes, there are always newspaper articles about the latest records at auctions for Picassos and Van Gogh and all of these things. And, it's in the millions. And then living artists, then their work, say, a David Hockney, I think, is the most expensive painting by a living artist, and so on. And that's news, but it's absurd. How do you judge the merits of different paintings? You can't say, oh, well, this went for $20 million and that one went for £50. But if it was painted by your grandmother before she died, that has no economic worth at all. But that's not the point. Tolkien said that in his big poem Mythopoeia, which is basically a kind of manifesto for the arts and being creative. He said, we make by the law in which we're made. In other words, because we are made by our Creator. So everything we do is a reflection from Him. That is the right use of this talent we share. Now, why does that matter? Well, it means that human creativity is not, in fact, in rebellion against God, necessarily. In fact, it's about participating in what we were made to be. It's an aspect of our very nature. Now, that does not mean that everybody's suddenly going to become Picasso. And it doesn't matter if nobody buys your stuff, if you've made a sort of little doodle or a cartoon or something. That's completely irrelevant. But it is an expression. You see, I think one of the problems, and there are lots of reasons over the centuries why Christians and the church have been very suspicious about the arts and creativity. And one of them has been because of the things that people make is deemed, they're deemed as ungodly or unhelpful or somehow even destructive of faith. Well, of course, you could say that about anything. No, actually, to make in whatever form, even, dare I say it, an Excel spreadsheet that really works. I know that some people get very excited about that. Odd. But that is an expression of the same thing, I would argue. And you would agree. So what is it about the arts and artists that is significant? I mean, as I say, it's not that people who are artistic are more important or more special or more significant. Far from it. Please do not get that idea at all. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying there are some aspects of what they do, that life without that would be much poorer for it. But secondly, there are some things that they do that we need to learn from. What are the gifts that artists give us? And, I think another reason that Christians have been suspicious of artists, and by the way, by artists, I mean all those who make in whatever sphere. It could be music, it could be poetry or novels, it could be architecture, it could be weaving, it could be Excel spreadsheets, you name it. It's all of this. Very often, archetypes, and I think this is why churches sometimes struggle with them, archetypes can be quite difficult and quite annoying, and they ask annoying questions, and they don't always do what they're told because they're arty. And that's annoying, unless you're arty, in which case, yeah. Now, it is perfectly possible to use your gifts to do things that are sinful and rebellious. But it's also possible to use them for things that are kingdom visioned and edifying and good and beautiful and true and just. It is part of what we're made for. But what is it about artists? How are they able to achieve some of the things that actually, if you like, normal people can't? They're not superior. And I also recognize that actually in this crazy world, to succeed in the arts, I've got many friends who've dreamed of making a career from their making, and it's just not worked out. And there are so many factors. It's not because of a lack of talent. It could be lack of opportunity. It could be life circumstances. It could be who they know, or rather who they don't know. I mean, so many different factors. But I think there are two things that very often these folks have in common, and that's what I want to pick up. The first is an ability to see. Well, okay, you think, yeah, that's not exactly rocket science. And by see, I actually mean perceive, to sense, to have a sense of what is around them, what is going on in the world. It might be suddenly noticing the beauty of something that for everybody else it looks, well, they don't notice it, or it's just boring or drab or just familiar. And then they see it and they're stopped in their steps. It's like, wow. I've never noticed how beautiful a concrete slab really can be. Or it may be that they have spotted the horror of something or the absurdity of something, and they do so before anybody's even woken up to it. Or maybe just the irrationality of why people keep doing something. It's, like the sort of the lemmings, they're running towards the cliff and they're just jumping off. Or it's like the boy in The Emperor's New Clothes and saying, he's not wearing any clothes. Nobody else would say it. Now, in that situation, it's not just a matter of seeing. Everybody could see that the emperor was naked. Actually, what's needed is a second thing, the ability to communicate what they see. Now, in the Hans Christian Andersen story, The Emperor's New Clothes, the boy just has to speak. He just says words. But the thing is, very often, those who are gifted artists may not be gifted in words at all. It may be they need other languages, like the language of the paintbrush, or the language of musical harmony, or the language of buildings, or maybe the language of color. I've talked to artists who can talk, for days just about the nature of the color green and the complexity of green. Green is a much more complicated color than you can possibly imagine. Or stage set design, whatever it is, that is how they express. And have you noticed sometimes that, actors are actually really quite boring? Have you noticed this? I mean, our world is obsessed with celebrity, and, chat shows are always having top-name actors, and some of them are very good, and some of them have a very good sort of stage act in terms of being chatty and funny and stuff, but some are actually really quite boring because they do not do their own words very well. They do other people's words brilliantly. That's why they're actors. Whatever it is, whatever language used to communicate, that is how they express what they've seen. Now, as gospel communicators, we have much to learn from that. Because at their best, the arts have an ability to point us to truth, to justice, to beauty, all three. And actually, something can be just and true and very ugly. I'm going to use one or two examples in the seminar this afternoon, looking at just that. Beauty is not the only criterion for assessing a work of art, for example. Actually, sometimes it is the very ugliness of it that stops you in your tracks. But they are unwittingly, or perhaps they're knowingly, communicating something actually that is consistent with biblical truth and just reality, just the way we are, the way the world is. They've seen things that when it gets pointed out, you go, oh yeah. It's like reading a novel, and maybe there's an interaction in the novel, and it's a bit awkward, and you have to think about, well, why is she saying that, and why is he doing this? And you think about it, and you think, actually, that's really true of how people are. And then you begin to spot it everywhere else. But until you'd seen it on the page, if you like, you'd never have thought about it. You see, they are helping us see what they've seen. Well, I just for the last few minutes, I want to show just one example. There are thousands we could look at, but I want to pick out one example from a painter, Lucian Freud, who was Sigmund Freud's grandson, and I think arguably one of the greatest portrait painters of the 20th century. I think that's the consensus is pretty clear on that. But, you know, he was Sigmund Freud's grandson, so he's going to have a complicated life. And, yep, he had quite a complicated life. He was moved from Germany with his family to London when he was just 11 years old in 1933. And he remained in London for the rest of his life. He moved around a bit, but basically his studio and his social circle and stuff was all in West London. Now, one of his friends was just a little older than him, a chap called John Minton. And John Minton was another artist based in London, and they sort of got to know each other, they admired and respected each other's work. Freud's style, how can we describe it? It's sort of visceral. It really gets under the skin. It is kind of like the opposite of Photoshop. He doesn't avoid any sort of the blemishes and the warts and all and stuff. It's in your face. He delights in painting sort of rolls of flab and things like that. So I'm not going to allow him anywhere near me. But basically, he has this remarkable ability to show the human body as it really is, not as we'd like it to be. Some of his paintings, therefore, are very uncomfortable indeed. One of the most striking I've seen in a gallery, there was an exhibition a few years ago I saw in London, and it's a self-portrait he did age 70, and the thing is I think it's about 2.5 meters tall, so it's bigger than life size. And basically he is standing completely naked, face on to you. So basically you look at this and he doesn't miss a thing. But it's agony. Because it's like, this is an old man. He's aging. Things are sagging, bits are falling off. He's tired, he's old. And you look at this and it's saying, that's going to be me. You can't avoid it. There's no hiding. It's kind of visceral. Well, anyway, he and John Minton decided that they were going to paint each other. So here's a photograph of John Minton, taken in about 1952 2. I'm assuming that you know absolutely nothing about him. Just very, very quickly, we're running out of time, but very, very quickly, what do you notice about him? If you had to sort of try and describe him and get a sense of his character or mood, what might you say? Just shout it out. Sad. Sad? Hmm? Lost? Yep.
Photo vibes.
Sorry again?
Photo vibes.
Photo vibes.
Photo
Right.
of movie.
Yeah. Do you know, I sometimes look at this and think that's what I'd have for my difficult second album. You probably had that, didn't you, Andy? I can just imagine you looking a bit like that. The difficult second album. It's always the same. Yeah, okay, good. Anybody else? Vacant. Al Pacino. Disappointed about being Al Pacino. Yeah. I'd be quite chuffed if I was Al Pacino, but, hey. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to show you the portrait now. And the portrait is from roughly the same time. What's fascinating, and I think this is sheer coincidence, the portrait has a very similar pose. And remember, they spent several months doing each other's portraits. So he's not standing in the pose because both of them, with brush in hand, they're looking at the other, turning to the easel, to the canvas and stuff, doing all this. So they're fully engaged. It's a very dynamic thing. But this is the painting. Now, it is the same guy, but there's more going on there than the photo could possibly tell you. Now, for time's sake, he's stretched him, so the face is longer. The interesting thing is, the photo is in sepia, so it's monochrome technically, but it's a sort of light brown, like old photos. So that gives to the sort of arty moodiness of it. The painting, of course, is color, but the range of colors, the palette, is actually very limited. So the palette sets the mood. But look at his eyes. And look at the bags under his eyes. And look at the direction of his gaze. In the photo, he's doing a sort of moody, romantic poet thing, looking off into the middle distance. In the painting, he's not doing that at all. He's looking at the floor, which is quite the giveaway. Now, the tragedy is that 5 years after this was painted, on Christmas Day, 1957, he took his own life. A friend was asking Freud about this painting. He said, you could see it, couldn't you? You could tell. I mean, you look at that, you're not surprised. I mean, I look at that, I just want to give the man a hug and say, it doesn't have to be like this. I find this painting actually very upsetting. No, it doesn't have to be like that. And an art critic was asking Freud, but you saw it, it's all there on the canvas. And Freud was fascinated. He said, well, I know that now, but I didn't know what I was painting. I was reacting to the moment. And he's captured a moment, it's a split second probably, in 3 months of work, looking at his face. But here's the really interesting thing. Artists see, and then they communicate what they see, but they don't always know what it means. Other people are needed for that, or maybe the passing of time are needed for that. But then we can look back and say, yes, you've seen something that was hidden in plain sight. Now, in a sense, that is what we're doing with the scriptures, isn't it? As we're opening them, they're there. We're trying to draw people in, Luke's uncover, all of that stuff. We're trying to get the people to see, and this is the same kind of exercise. This is our ally, not our threat. Now, there's plenty more I would say, but I'm not going to say it now because I need to hand over to Kaz. But if you want to find out more and you want to see some more pictures, then come to the seminar this afternoon. Thank you very much.